Hello, everyone. Um, Welcome to your channel. Um, so, you've been carrying weight for so long, haven't you? Holding tension in your shoulders, managing details nobody else sees, keeping everything running while your own joy gets postponed. But something's about to break through that heaviness in a way that reminds you what lightness feels like. Let me share what I'm perceiving in the energetic climate surrounding you right now. The first thing emerging is this quality of relief you might be on the verge of experiencing. You could be picking up on resolution approaching for something that's been creating background stress, a situation that's felt stuck, finally showing movement, an outcome you've been anxiously monitoring trending positive. You might be sensing that news arriving soon carries the specific flavor of pleasant surprise, of things working out better than you let yourself hope for. And your system is already responding to that approaching shift even before concrete information reaches you. Here's what you could be observing in the infrastructure of your daily reality. You might be noticing that problems you've been methodically working on are suddenly yielding to solutions, that obstacles that seemed permanent are revealing themselves as temporary. You could be picking up on communication, bringing clarity you've needed, on results from efforts you made weeks or months ago finally manifesting. You might be experiencing that particular satisfaction that comes when preparation meets opportunity. When the work you put in quietly, without guarantee of payoff, is suddenly validated in tangible ways. What's building in the atmospheric pressure is that you could be approaching news that eases something specific you've been worried about. You might be dealing with health results that are better than expected, financial information that relieves pressure, relationship development that confirms you weren't wrong to invest. You could be sensing that what's coming doesn't just meet minimum acceptable outcome, but actually exceeds it, and experiencing positive surprise rather than just adequate resolution is going to feel especially sweet after a period of measured expectations. This reflection invites you to consider what genuine delight would feel like in your body after so much time operating in problem solving mode, and whether you're giving yourself permission to feel joy without immediately searching for the catch. You might be noticing that your usual caution is softening slightly. You could be experiencing yourself entertaining hopeful scenarios you'd normally shut down as unrealistic, allowing yourself to imagine best case outcomes instead of defaulting to worst case preparation. You might be picking up on your own readiness to receive good news, a subtle opening in your typically defended posture. And this shift in your receptivity is creating conditions where positive developments can actually land and be felt rather than immediately analyzed or dismissed. What's radiating through the relational and professional spheres is that you could be sensing recognition approaching. You might be picking up on appreciation for contributions you've made that went unacknowledged, on someone finally seeing the value you bring, on effort you invested privately about to become publicly validated. You could be experiencing the particular warmth that comes when people you respect express genuine regard for your work or your character. And for someone who doesn't need constant praise but deeply values authentic acknowledgement, this recognition is going to matter more than surface compliments ever could. What's particularly beautiful about what I'm witnessing is that you might be approaching joy that's specifically tailored to what you personally value. You could be receiving news about something that matters to you, even if others wouldn't understand why it's significant approval for project close to your heart. progress in area you've been devoted to, small victory in domain only you have been tracking. You might be experiencing validation that's meaningful precisely because it's specific, because it shows someone paying attention to details, because it honors what you actually care about rather than what people assume you should care about. You might be picking up on this good news arriving through channels you check regularly. You could be experiencing communication via email you've been refreshing, phone call from number you've been watching for, message from person whose contact you've been hoping to see. You might be sensing that when news arrives, it will be through medium you're already monitoring. So, continuing to stay alert to usual channels rather than expecting dramatic, unexpected delivery is appropriate. What's threading through the timeline is that you could be dealing with news that creates cascade of positive effects. You might be receiving one piece of good information that unlocks other possibilities, approval that allows you to make other plans, confirmation that lets you stop contingency planning, resolution that frees energy you've been holding in reserve. You could be picking up on how one positive development is going to ripple outward, creating breathing room in multiple areas of life that have felt constricted. This reflection invites you to consider what you've been postponing until you had more certainty or security, and whether incoming good news will give you permission to finally move forward on desires you've been keeping on hold. You might be noticing that part of what makes this news so welcome is the contrast with recent difficulty. You could be experiencing relief as especially sweet because you've been in challenging period, because you've been managing stress with limited support, because you've been wondering when things would finally ease. You might be picking up on this positive development as evidence that your persistence through hard times was worthwhile, that maintaining integrity and effort even when results weren't visible is finally yielding fruit you can taste. What's also surfacing is that you could be dealing with news that allows you to relax control slightly. You might be receiving information that means you don't have to micromanage a situation anymore, that other people or systems are handling things competently, that you can actually trust process rather than having to personally ensure every detail. You could be sensing upcoming permission to delegate, to rest, to stop being the sole person responsible is less than #0. 5 is greater than. And for someone who defaults to carrying everything themselves, this particular form of good news is profound relief. The harmonic frequency suggests you might be experiencing validation of your intuition or judgment. You could be receiving confirmation that decision you made was correct, that person you trusted was worthy of that trust, that direction you chose despite others' skepticism was actually the right path. You might be picking up on news that proves you weren't being paranoid or overly cautious or too idealistic, that your read of situations was accurate even when you questioned yourself. And having that internal compass validated strengthens your confidence in trusting your own discernment going forward. What's significant is that you could be approaching news that makes you smile, not just mentally, but physically. You might be experiencing something that breaks through your usual composure, that creates spontaneous expression of joy you don't performance manage. You could be sensing that what's coming will touch you in undefended place, will reach past your analytical processing straight to genuine emotion, and allowing yourself to be moved, to show delight, to express happiness without immediately tempering. It is going to be healing after a period of staying measured. This reflection invites you to consider who you want to share this good news with when it arrives, and whether you're ready to let people see you happy without downplaying your excitement to make them comfortable. Um, you might be picking up on this news involving something you've been working on improving. You could be receiving results from health changes you implemented, feedback on skills you've been developing, outcomes from systems you refined. You might be experiencing validation that your attention to detail, your commitment to incremental progress, your willingness to do unglamorous work, all of that is producing measurable results, and seeing concrete evidence of improvement is deeply satisfying for someone who values tangible progress. What I'm witnessing in the energetic blueprint is that you could be dealing with news that arrives when you're not in peak state. You might be receiving good information on day you're tired, when you're not dressed up, when you're just handling ordinary tasks. You could be experiencing joy finding you in mundane moment rather than during special occasion. And that ordinariness of the setting somehow makes the happiness more real, more sustainable, because it's not tied to perfect conditions but can exist even in regular life. The constellation of circumstances suggests you might be experiencing this good news as connected to your service to others. You could be receiving appreciation for help you gave, seeing positive outcome from guidance you offered, witnessing someone you supported achieving something meaningful. You might be picking up on the particular fulfillment that comes from knowing your contribution made actual difference. And for someone who finds purpose in being useful, in solving problems, in making things better, this kind of validation feeds something essential. What's also coming through is that you could be dealing with news that's been delayed but is more valuable for the wait. You might be receiving something that wouldn't have been ready earlier, that needed time to develop properly, that arrived at exact right moment even though waiting was frustrating. You could be recognizing that timing you questioned was actually perfect. And seeing how delays served rather than sabotaged you helps you process more in future situations where immediate results aren't visible. This reflection invites you to consider what story you've been telling yourself about why good things don't happen for you, and whether receiving this news will help you release that narrative in favor of one where you're actually allowed to experience joy and success. You might be noticing that you're already protecting yourself from disappointment even as you hope. You could be experiencing yourself rehearsing reactions if news isn't as good as you're anticipating, preparing fallback plans, reminding yourself not to get too excited. You might be picking up on your own defensive patterns, and while some caution is wisdom, notice if you're armoring against happiness so thoroughly that even when good news arrives, you'll struggle to let it penetrate. So as you move through the next stretch of time toward news that's approaching, practice staying open. You might be experiencing nervousness, fear of jinxing positive outcome by believing in it, habitual skepticism that served you before but might be limiting you now. What I'm witnessing is someone who's done everything they could do, who's managed what's in their control, who deserves the relief and joy that's heading toward them, is less than #0. 5# is greater than, and receiving it gracefully means letting your guard down enough to actually feel it when the news comes, and you'll recognize it when it does. Let yourself smile, that big unguarded smile. You might experience your whole face changing, tension releasing from jaw you didn't know was clenched, lightness spreading through chest that's been tight for too long. Allow yourself the full feeling without immediately moving to next problem, next concern, next thing that needs fixing. Just be present with good news for a moment. Let it soak in. Let it remind you that life doesn't have to be constant management of difficulty, that ease and satisfaction are available to you too. You've earned this. Not because you had to earn joy, you're inherently worthy of it, but because you've persisted through challenges with grace, maintained your standards when lowering them would have been easier, kept showing up even when results seemed distant. What's coming is both gift and recognition. Receive it as both. And let it fill you with the kind of happiness that doesn't need to be explained or justified. Your smile is coming. Trust that. Get ready for it. You're about to remember what pure, uncomplicated delight feels like, and you deserve every second of it.